right, we are on the bottom of Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph, 21a3. Some Magadata today. Everyone can take a exhale a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Vam Rav Chisda, all right, all the way at the bottom of 21a3 or Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph. Vam Rav Chisda Darish Mari Bar Mari. Okay, so we have there's the same person who darshan before. So it's Rav Chisda quoting Mari Bar Mari, who says, "My dichsiv, what is the meaning of the pasuk? V'hinu shnei duda'ei te'enim. There are two pots of figs." Okay, figs were a popular and common food back in the day, back in Eretz Yisrael, and there are two pots of figs. Mu'adim l'fnei heichal Hashem. They were prepared before the sanctuary of Hashem. Hadud ha'echa te'enim tovos ma'od ki te'enei habakuros. The first one were amazing. They were great. They were figs which were ripen, like the figs which ripen first. V'adud ha'echa te'enim ra'os ma'od. And the other pots contained figs which were very bad. Asher lo se'achalna me'roa. And which would never be eaten because they were so bad. So what is the significance of these two pots of figs that were standing before Hashem? Te'enim hatovos elu tzadikim gemurim. The good figs symbolize the totally righteous. Te'enim haraos elu risham gemurim. The bad figs symbolize the totally wicked. Okay, so you have in front of Hashem basically this recognition that there are Jews who are great, who are tzadikim. There are Jews who are bad, who are rishaim. B'shem hatomar. And maybe you'll say, Avad Sivra Muvatzal Sikuyam, that the ones which are bad, okay, so you have this pot which are totally bad. It would seem like Hashem is totally forgetting about them. Their hope is gone. They have no hope. Tamalomar Hadudaim Nasnu Reach. So another pasuk, not from Yirmiyahu, but rather from Shir Hashirim, that speaks about these pots, and it speaks about them emitting a fragrance. Elu va'elu asidim shitnu reach. Both groups are destined to emit a fragrance. Okay, so what is going on over here? What's the meaning over here? So Chazal, the different Farshim explain that what this is saying is as follows, and that is that there are people who are righteous, there are people who are not so righteous, and you would think that therefore those who are not righteous, those who are full of sins, we should give up on them. Like, what do they have going for them? And it's not like just like from externally. Hashem really sees them as two separate categories. They're really those who are completely distinct, completely separate in the sense that they are bad. But the pasuk in Shir Hashirim says that nonetheless, no matter how bad they are, they're still able to give off a smell of Torah. Nasnu Reach over here is understood to be a smell, a fragrance of the good fragrance. In the context over there is a reference to Torah, and that is that, and we have many Mamari Chazal which say that even if a person could go and do such terrible things, but the Torah itself, by studying Torah, in some way Torah has the ability to bring a person back, and even these terrible figs which are so bad, the fact that they're learning Torah is able to ultimately bring them back and, so to speak, enable them to no longer be seen as a pot of bad figs, but rather is able to transform them and bring out the good within them. Okay, so this speaks to, essentially speaking to the power of Torah, that even if a person is a rasha, right, there's a Medrash Eicha, which is often quoted, and that is that Hashem is quoted as saying that I prefer that in reference to the people who. In reference to the times of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, that Hashem says it would be better if they would have, forsaken me, but still continued learning my Torah. Because by learning the Torah, there's something about the Torah, there's something about the light of the Torah which draws a person back in. And you see it. You see it sometimes. People are like, okay, I'm going to learn a little bit, and all of a sudden they're putting on tefillin, they're doing this, they're doing that, whatever it is. But basically, something about the Torah which draws on our soul, draws on our neshama, and brings us back. And that's what this Gemara is talking about. Okay, Darish Rava. Further on these psukim about these pots which emit a fragrance. Okay, so the real meaning of dudaim, so dud can mean a pot, but dud could also mean a violet. In its original context in Shir Hashirim, the simple meaning is it's referring to a flower, a violet. Elu bachuri Yisrael shelo tamu tam chet. It's a reference to the young Jewish people who have never tasted the flavor of sin. That Hashem is saying that there's this incredible impact of these young people who are so young that they've never really engaged in sin, and that is something which is pleasing to Hashem. Okay, Val Psachenu Kol Megadim, and what else is pleasing to Hashem? At our doors are all fine fruits. What is this a reference to? Okay, so this whole pasuk over here is speaking to Hashem's, so to speak, attraction to the Jewish people. So what is it? So first, it's the young Jewish people. Young Jewish people are pure. Yeah, sometimes we see them as annoying and whatever, and this and that. But like at the end of the day, because the fact that they're so young, there's no real as opposed to us altar cockers or whatever it is. We keep on doing the same thing. Sin becomes a part of us. A young person, their instability is also a good thing in the sense that maybe they do wrong things, but it's not really a part of their character yet, and therefore there's something incredibly pure about a young person, and therefore that's the first thing that they give off this beautiful smell, because they are not engaged, they're not immersed in sin just immersed in sin. Okay, and at our doors are all fine fruits. What is this a reference to? This refers to the daughters of Israel who tell their husbands of their openings. What does this mean? Of the openings is a reference to the fact that when they are potentially going to become a nida, they warn their husbands. Okay, so some understand, the Rashash understands this to mean that when there's something called a ona, where a person is anticipating a flow, and so this refers to the fact that the Jewish people are so strict that not only when they are actually bleeding, but even when they're anticipating becoming a nida, they warn their husbands, and that is something which is lofty, and that's something which is laudable, and that's what this pasuk is referring to, and that's the word at the doors. Lashon achar she'ogdos pischem levalehan. They close their openings for their husbands, meaning they remain faithful to their husbands, and that's what Hashem is praising, in the sense that there is fidelity that is expressed by Benos Israel, by the daughters of Israel. Okay, chadashim gam yishanim dodi tzafanti lach. New ones as well as old ones, my beloved, I have hidden for you. Okay, so what does this mean? New ones as well as old ones, my beloved. This is the Jewish people speaking to Hashem. New ones and old ones, I've hidden for you. So Amar Knesset Yisrael V'nei Kadosh Baruch Hu. This refers to the Jewish people saying to Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, Har b'gzeros gazarti la'atzmi. I made many restrictions upon myself. Yoser m'masha gazarta alai, more than you made upon me. V'kiyamtim, and I kept them. That's what it means. That chadashim gam yishanim. Dodi, Hashem, we're saying to Hashem, you gave us many laws, and we went and we added laws to it. Look how much we love you, right? So often, it's such an important framing. We so often think of all the xeros as like draconian, as like Chazal trying to make our life miserable. And when we think about it from our perspective, what are we doing? Ultimately, what are we saying? We're saying that we're sensitive to these laws. We don't want to be Mechal Shabbos. Hashem, I don't want to infringe upon you. It's like, again, if we think about it from like this relationship model, which is what Shir Shirim is asking us to do, from the perspective of a relationship model, it's like, okay, Hashem, you asked us to do X, Y. So, X, Y, Z. So I'm not going to just like keep the bare minimum of what your expectations are for me. That's very utilitarian. That seems like a shallow relationship. If I really care, if like this is something that bothers you, or this is something which is troubling to you, so I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to go ahead and like not just do that, I want to do more, right? So a gezerah, when we keep a decree, yes, it's true. It was imposed on us by Chazal. But ultimately, what are they trying to do? What they're trying to do is express our love of Hashem. If Hashem said, I don't want you doing the following on Shabbos, and I say, well, since you don't want me to do the following on Shabbos, I'm going to go ahead and add like a couple of layers, right? That shows I care, right? I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good example. It's too early in the morning, but whatever. I don't know if a spouse doesn't want like a mess on Shabbos. So you don't want a mess on Shabbos. I'm not gonna make a mess on Sunday also. Like whatever. Obviously, there's something here, so I want to go ahead and do more because that shows that I care about you, right? We have to think about gezeros in that respect. Yes, it's a lot. But it's a lot in the context of trying to create a relationship. In the context of a relationship, we add on. We don't just do like, okay, this is my bare expectations. Check, I did my checklist. No, I want to do more. I didn't just fulfill my checklist. It's a relationship. I want to invest, and that's how Chazal, and that's how we're understanding Gezeros in this context. Okay. There was a rabbi who had arranged Agadata, what we're learning over here, in front of Rav Chisda, and he asked him, he said, do you have any interpretation what it means, new ones as well as old ones? Amalei, this rabbi said, Elu mitzvahs kalos ve'elu mitzvahs chamuros. It's a reference to lenient mitzvos and more stringent mitzvos. Amalei, was the Torah given in stages, that there's new as well as old? Okay, meaning what does it mean? So why are you calling light ones or strict ones as new and old? New and old sounds like chronologically one is new and one is old, and therefore he disagreed with this rabbi, and rather he said the way we just learned it, Ella halal midivrei Torah, v'halal midivrei sofrim. Old is a reference to that's written in the Torah, and new is a reference to the institutions of our sages, and that is what this pasuk is referring to. Okay, Darash Rava. Now we go further into the discussing the significance of Chazal. Darash Rava learned, meaning institutions of Chazal. If he yoser mehema b'ni, he's zaher hasos svarim harbe. Okay, so the pasuk says, the pasuk in Kohela says, and more than these, my son, listen. The making of many books. Okay, so what does this mean? Bini. So this is the interpretation. Bini, my child. He's a her b'divrei sofrim, yoser b'divrei Torah. Be more careful about the institutions of Chazal, rabbinic law, more than biblical law. Why? Shedivrei Torah yesh behen aseh v'lo saseh. When it comes to Doraisas, there are positive mitzvos and there are negative mitzvos. Okay, and when you violate a negative mitzvah, depends on the severity. Some of them are chayim misa, some of them you get malchus. When it comes to positive mitzvah, if you violate it, there's no punishment. Okay, however, divrei sofrim, when it comes to violating the words of the sages, kol over al divrei sofrim chayim misa, you are going to be liable for death If you go against muksa, if you did borer on Shabbos, then okay, one thing. Okay, fine. That's not a good example. You also chamisa, but whatever. The point is that there's certain lavim. If you go ahead and you violate a lav, the punishment would be malchus. When it comes to lashes, when it comes to divrei sofrim rabbinic law, the punishment is death, and not death by Beis Din. Beis Din will not be able to punish you that way, but rather means misa b'dei shamayim. Okay, we'll explain why in a moment. Shemar Tomar, you might say im yesh behen mamish, if they're so substantive. Mipnei ma lo nichtavu. Why weren't they written in the Torah? Amar Kra, asos svarim harbe ein kates. The making of many books, the end of the pasuk says, the making of many books is without limit. In other words, there's too much information. Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral law, is so vast that there's no way it could have been written down. So don't think, just because one thing was written down and one thing wasn't, therefore one thing is important and one thing is not. No, Divrei Sofrim, the words of Chazal are just as important, if not more important. And you may ask, if that's the case, why didn't Hashem, right? So often you hear, why didn't Hashem just tell, Moshe all these things? Why do we have to have, later on, Ezra and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, just say it all in the beginning? The point is that one is so vast, it would have been like an endless book, and therefore Hashem chose, so to speak, not to write it down. So let's just unpack this for a moment, because there's a lot here. So first of all, in terms of why would we be punished more for going against Chazal, the sages, as opposed to the Torah? So Rabbeinu Yonah explains like this. He says, oftentimes, if you were to interview a person, so to speak, after they sinned, went against a biblical violation, they would usually say, it was a moment of weakness. I really want to keep it. Something happened. It just happened. Fine. If you really do, but of course they're respectful. They're reverential in front of something which is Doraisa. When it comes to rabbinic law, usually if you were to have an honest interview, it's just right. People ask me all the time, is this Doraisa or Durabanan? What's the difference? It's Aser, right? Or whatever, it's a Chiyuv, right? No, but if it's over, it's just Durabanan, right? So, right, this is not new. Rabbeinu Yonah was writing this a few hundred years ago. It says, if it's rabbinic, then people tend to take it much more lightly. And therefore, Chazal came along and said, okay, so in order to ensure that you're going to treat it just as strongly, they instituted that the punishment for it is much more severe, because we tend to say, it's man-made, therefore it's not as important. It's not true. It's very important. So much so that the Gemara over here's next question is, wait a second, it's so important, that's why the Gemara then asks, so wait, why is it not written down? The Gemara says it's too vast. Now, it's too vast is a little bit of a strange answer. I don't know. There's a lot of books here. Is there a limit to how much Moshe could have written? There's a few things to this. One is, in terms of why Hashem did not command Moshe to write down everything. One is that some of these things change with time, right? In other words, there's certain laws and certain institutions, Takanos Rabbeinu Gershom, that you can't marry more than one wife, so that's something which is an evolution. It's not something which was always, and sometimes Chazal come along and say, hey, times have changed, things are different, we need to do something now, which didn't exist before. So that's one reason why things aren't written down. The other piece, Rav Hirsch speaks about a lot, is that the Torah is meant to be a living document. And if it's something which is completely written down and doesn't have any of the dialogue, any of the interaction, then it becomes something that anyone could study on their own without the sense of a community, and therefore the need to have a sense of. I'm waiting for Jesse's question. Jesse, you look like you're revving up. What's it called? Okay, good. What's it called? I'm ready. What's it called? But the point is that there's also value there in the sense that it creates a sense of community, a sense of learning Torah as a whole and not as individual. Yes.
You don't get death for everything the rabbis say.
Apparently you do.
Do you really?
Not in Beis Din.
I married 2 wives. I'm going to get. My one wife might kill me.
Yeah, she will.
You wouldn't get death for that.
So according to the Gemara is saying that you're Chayim Misa again, Misa b'dei Shemaim.
Right.
Yeah. Right? Correct. Beis Din will not take you and say, hey, you violated this. There's nothing Beis Din could do in such a case, but the point is that they're saying there is Misa b'dei Shemaim.
Is that people get married and they don't give a get? It's not really a big deal? People who marry a wife and they say they give a get, but they don't really give a get.
Why would that?
I'm saying because they have 2 wives officially, but the Beis Din can't do anything about it?
No. So yeah, correct. Beis Din is very limited. I'm saying in terms of they don't have jurisdiction. I mean, they have nothing. Meaning, there's not a dig in Beis Din. I'm saying we don't have we don't live in a world where Beis Din has a real authority. But yeah, if they're going against Chazal, so yeah, this Beis Din may not do anything, but they're going to rot in hell.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Vilag harbe yigas basar. Okay. So The end of the pasuk says that much study is the awareness of the flesh. What does this refer to? The word velahag is a funny term. So Amar Papa Braid Rav Acha Braid Rav Acha Bar Adam Mishmei Rav Acha Bar Ula Milamich Kol Hamalig Al Divrei Chachamim Nidon Bitzor Rosachas. So the term velahag, he understands, it's the end of the pasuk. It's understood not to be much study, but rather velahag from the word laag with an ayin, which means mocking. Anyone who mocks the words of the sages, yigias basar. So literally means the awareness of the flesh, but it's understood to mean that they'll be punished in boiling excrement. This is the punishment for a person who, there's a lot of explanation in terms of why, but there's a lot of Gemaras in Sanhedrin which speak about different people who used to mock. There's actually one of the Gemaras that's what's called, what do you call it? When they take out a Gemara. What's censored? There's a censored Gemara in Sanhedrin. There's a couple of Gemaras in Sanhedrin which are taken out, which refer to an individual by the name of Yeshu, or whatever. And the question is this referring to Jesus or not Jesus? And whatever, a whole long academic discussion, whatever. But if it is referring to him, it does. They understand that part of his philosophy and part of what he was doing at the time was making fun of Divrei Rabba of Chazal, and therefore the Gemaras there talk about the fact that he is there in Gehenna, whatever, in excrement, in burning excrement, and this would seem to line up with this, that someone who goes ahead and mocks the words of Chazal, this is their punishment. Okay, not pleasant. Tan Rabbanan, it was taught. Ma'aser Rabbi Kiva, story of Rabbi Kiva, she'achabush beis asur, and he was in jail. Okay, this before he was terribly killed by the Romans. He was first in jail. Rabbi Yeshua Hagarsi Misharson. Yeshua Hagarsi would attend his needs b'chol yom v'yom every day. In other words, in jail, the jail, now we live in a society. Here in America, we live in a society where the people in jail, they're taken care of. It's a good place to live for some people, right? You have a bed, you have food, whatever. Okay, not really that good. Fine, but the point is that they take care of them. In the ancient world, the jail they wouldn't have any responsibility. So if anyone wants, they had a servant, they had someone from the community who would bring them food. So Rabbi Kiva was in jail. He was in jail, but why? Because he was teaching Torah in public, which was illegal. And Rabbi Yeshua Hagarsi was the person who would attend his needs. He would bring him a certain amount of water. The prison guard stopped him. Amarlo hayomi mecha marubim. He said, "You have too much water today. Shema lachtor beisa surim atatarach." Maybe you're digging out to the prison. In other words, maybe you're giving water to Rabbi Kiva, and he's pouring the water on the soil so he could dig out. Yeah, a little Shawshank Redemption style, right? Basically, just a little bit at a time. Fine. Shema chetzion, shava chetzion, nasal chetzion. He spilled it half the water and gave the remaining half. Kishabayis Rabbi Kiva. So he comes to Rabbi Kiva with half a cup of water. Amarlo Yeshua inate yadei shezakinani. Don't you know that I'm an old man? Bechayai tzlim bechayacha. My life depends on your life. Why are you bringing me such a little amount of water? So Sachlo call Osa Mora. Rabbi Yeshua told him everything that happened. Amarlo Rabbi Kiva said, "Tein li mayim, give me the water that you brought. She'etol yadi, and I'm going to wash my hands before eating bread." In other words, he does it right. So Amarlo, he says, "Lishtos imagin." Rabbi Yeshua said to him, "There's not enough water to drink. Litol yidecha magin. There's enough water to wash your hands. So what are you doing? You need to drink water, right? There's such a little bit of water over here. What are you doing?" Amarlo, ma'asa. What can I do? Shechayavin alei misa. Rabbinic law carries a death penalty, right? So as we just saw in this Gemara before, that a person who violates the words of Chazal, they are punishable by death. Amus misas atzmi. Better that I die the death caused by myself. In other words, by not drinking too much. Velo avral das chaverai, as opposed to violating the words of my colleagues, who obligated a person to wash their hands before eating bread. So he used his hands his water to wash his hands and not to drink water. Okay, Amru, they said, lo tam klum, he didn't eat anything, achahevi lamayim, until he was brought water, v'natzal yadav, he washed his hands, k'sham chachamim b'davar, when the chachamim heard this, they said, Amru, they said, unbelievable, ma b'ziknusa kach, in his old age he's like this, b'yaldusa al achas kam v'kama, how much more so in his youth, umav v'es asurin kach, and if he's like this in jail, shalo b'ves asurin, al achas kam v'kama, how much more so when, how he was devoted to Divrei Chazal when he was not in jail. I saw some ridiculous person, I was a rabbi, post on Facebook this past week, that, what's her name, Agam, was not a good model. Why is it not a good model? Because really, la halacha, you don't. If a person is in jail and they don't have a lot of food, you're supposed to eat treif. And if a person is in jail and they have to eat chametz on Pesach, you eat chametz on Pesach. And therefore, this is not a good model. You're a doofus. Let's go. So the point is that, what are you talking about? Look, we're law. Yes, it's true. She did not have to do that. If someone asks you a shaila and they say, I'm in jail, I'm in chas v'chalila, stuck in as a hostage and they're serving me treif, am I allowed to eat treif? Of course you eat treif. But if a person goes ahead and doesn't, it's also that we applaud them for their incredible bravery and for what they're able to do. And you don't have a better example than Rabbi Kiva. So yeah. Anyway, she's in good company. Okay. Am Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel b'shash tiken Shlomo Erev Netilas Yadayim. When Shlomo went ahead and established the laws of an Erev and the laws of washing one's hands. Okay, so the Gemara in Shabbos, right? The Gemara in Shabbos says that there are really stages to these different, to these different things, to these different institutions. Shlomo Melech instituted that you need to have Erev Chatzeros, that if you go from one private domain to another private domain, there needs to be some connection over there. Not all the stages of Erev were instituted by Shlomo. Shlomo did one, and then as time went on, there was like added and added and added. Same thing with washing hands. Shlomo instituted that before you touch Kadshim, sanctified food, you have to wash your hands. And then later rabbis came along and instituted ultimately to what we have, where we wash our hands before eating bread. But that's like a few stages later. It didn't happen overnight, right? But Shlomo is the first of these institutions. Yatza Baskel v'Amra, a heavenly voice came from heaven and said, B'ni im chacham libecha, my son, if your heart is wise, yismach libi gamani, my heart shall rejoice too. Okay, so Hashem is basically saying, you're so wise, I'm so happy because of what you did. Va'omer chacham b'ni v'samach libi, be wise, my son, and make my heart glad. V'ashiva charfi davar, and I'll answer something he who disgraces me. Bottom line is Hashem is praising Shlomo for these institutions. Darsh Rava Darshan. Ma'idechsiv l'cha dodi neitzi asad and alina b'kfarim. By the way, this is where we get the words l'cha dodi from. Pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Go, come, my beloved. Let's go to the field. And this is, by the way, why in Tzfat and other and part of why we even turn around at the end is they used to go to the fields to say Kabbalah Shabbos from these words l'cha dodi neitzi basada neitzi asad. We're going to go out to the fields, okay, and let us lodge in the villages. What does this mean? The end of the pasuk says nashkima lakramim. Let's arise early to the vineyards near in Parcha Hagefen. Let's see if the vine is flowered. Pita Smadar, the grape blossom has opened. Heinetu harmonim, the pomegranates are in bloom. Sham etin is dodi lach. There I will give my love to you. Okay, so again, Shir Hashirim, the way Shir Hashirim works is that it's this love song, but it's understood by our sages that it's also the whole thing's a metaphor, the whole thing's an analogy to deeper ideas. Okay, so what does the pasuk mean? L'chadodi neti asada. Rava said, by the way, the Gemara tells us that they were going to put Shir Hashirim away. It was seen as like too erotic. It was seen as it basically seems like a love song, entirely just a very, very graphic love song. And Rabbi Kiva came along and said, no, you guys are making a mistake. It's Kodesh Kadashim. He says, you just don't know how to interpret it. So Rabbi Kiva came along and said, no, the whole thing is Holy of Holies, and really you just have to interpret it and recognize that, yes, it's a love song, but it's all a metaphor for our relationship with Hashem. Okay, so here Rava is telling us what this pasuk means. The Jewish people, so to speak, said to Hashem, Ribono Shalom, massive universe, Al tidineni ki yoshvei krakim. Don't judge me by my people who live in the cities. Sheish b'hem gazal v'arayis v'shvua shav v'shvua shaker, in which there's theft, immorality, vain oaths, and false oaths. In other words, there's a recognition that people living in a city, cities are filled with vice. There's something about the energy of a city. There's something about the living in a city which lends itself, unfortunately, to people doing things that are not so great. And therefore, we say to Hashem, don't judge us for the people in the city. Okay, Neitzei hasada, go out to the fields. What does that mean? Go and see the people who are living these austere lives. People who have these sages who are not making a penny, who no one's supporting them, who basically are living on nothing, but they're immersed in your Torah. Look at those people, right? Come to the fields. Now, Lina Bakfarim, let's lodge in the villages. What does that mean? Al Tikrei Bakfarim, Ela Bakhofrim. Don't read in the villages, but rather in the disbelievers. Bo Varecha Asom Shibishpat Lem Tova. Look, said the Jewish people, look at the people, other nations, who you've given so much good to them, Vim Kafir B'cha, and yet they've denied your existence, right? So basically, look at our sages who don't have anything, and yet they're studying your Torah, yet they're going in your ways. Go walk the streets of, Mea She'arim, whatever it is. They have Gornish, they have absolutely nothing, and yet they dedicate their days, they dedicate their time to studying your Torah. And go look at people who you've given so much prosperity, who are completely ignoring you, who completely reject you. Nashkim alakramim, let's arise the vineyards. What is this referring to? All of you, everyone in the room. The people who come early to shuls and to study halls, right? Shul didn't even start. Now people are learning, people are coming to put on their tefillin. This is a reference we're saying to Hashem, you want to see our beauty, you want to see our greatness, we don't just come to shul on time, we come early. This is it. Amazing. Nira im parcha gefen, let's see if the vine is flowered. Elu bala mikra, those are a reference to people who the students who study Tanakh. Pitach hasmada, the grape blossom is open. Elu bala mishnah, those that study Mishnah. Hein etzer armonim, the pomegranates are in bloom. Elu bala gemara, those are referring to the students of Gemara. Okay, sham etin es dodi lach, there I will give you love, I'll give my love to you. Erech kevodi begodli shevach banai v'nosai, I will show you my glory, my greatness, the praise of my sons and my daughters. So again, the Jewish people telling Hashem, look at those studying your Torah, look at those who have nothing and still study your Torah. That is our greatness. That's something that should be the pride of the Jewish people. Amar Rav Hamnuna, says Rav Hamnuna, Ma'idich sevei daber shloshes lafim mashal v'hi shiro chamisha ba'alef, and he spoke 3,000 parables, and his songs were 1,005. There's a reference to Shlomo Melech, Malam Misham, Shlomo al Kol Davar Shel Torah, shloshes lafim mashal, regarding every single thing in the Torah. He said 3,000 reasons 3,000 mishalim, 3,000 parables for every single law of the Torah. Al kol davar davar shel sofrim chamisha ve'elef tamim. And regarding every single thing of our sages, he said 1,005 reasons. Darish Rava, okay, so also a reference to Shlomo. Besides being wise, well as taught knowledge to the people, he listened and sought out and arranged many proverbs. What does it mean? He taught them the symbols of cantillation, meaning the trup that we have. Some say that Shlomo was the one who instituted. Okay, it seems like it was forgotten, and later people. The trup, like the cantillations, like the tune, like Vaydaber Moshe Moshe the tune. So that comes along from that Shlomo was. There's a long discussion about who exactly instituted it. Our tradition is that it came from Moshe, it was forgotten, Shlomo comes along, and then it's forgotten, Ezra comes along, and it seems like there was some gaps in the time, but ultimately Shlomo is one of the people who taught it to the Jewish people. Initially Torah was like a basket without handles. Basket with handles is hard to hold, hard to handle. Shlomo made handles. So there's another way of looking at Divrei Chazal, that the idea of rabbinic law is in order to enable you to hold the Torah. In other words, sometimes you have laws and it's hard to access them, it's hard to keep them. The idea of a handle is, imagine the function of Chazal is to give you a handle to allow you to hold them. So for example, Muksa, like you have these laws, it's hard to keep, hard to keep certain biblical laws. The laws of Muksa allow you to, so to speak, handle them. In other words, ensure that you keep them, ensure that you're able to hold on to the words of the Torah properly, and that is another way of understanding what the function of Chazal is, that they are there to give you handles to enable you to keep the Torah, and that's the idea of a handle. It enables you to connect to it. Okay, we'll stop here. Have a great day.